Hey everybody, welcome back to Hawks DIY. Well, it's another week and that means more projects. So we're going to be back on the Frontier, 2014 Nissan Frontier. And I'm going to be installing a new Serpentine belt. And then I'm also going to be installing a modified vent breather for the rear axle. And I've been talking about this the last several videos, so we're going to get into that. And who knows, we might get into other things too. So anyway, stick around. Let's get started. Getting kind of gnarly there, ain't it? Looks like we might get some rain. But, well, we got boats everywhere around here. I mean, we even got a sea-doo over here. I guess they call that because you see it and you do it, I guess. I don't know. But we'll get started on this belt here. Yeah, that sea did, I guess.
You know what?
What?
You got two types of those. You got your sea doos and you got your sea dogs.
And is that supposed to be funny?
It is what it is, man. I mean, either they do or they don't.
Oh. Okay, we're moving on now. Well, the neighbor's cutting their trees down over there. So you'll probably be hearing that in the background. So,
Something solid in it.
yeah, something just landed on the roof somewhere. Did you hear that? All right, guys and gals, enough messing around. We're gonna get started here. I got the hood open here. And so let's talk a little bit about these Serpentine belts. They're gonna have two numbers. One's gonna be a manufacturing part number. The other is gonna be a PK number. And so the 7 represents the number of ribs. So if you look at a Serpentine belt, you see how it's got all those ribs? So that's the number of ribs on the belt. And then the last 4 digits refers to the length of the belt in millimeters. So the PK number is basically a worldwide metric belt measurement. And so when you're changing these Serpentine belts, you know, go by that PK number and you can't go wrong. So anyway, I've got that one. I'll put a link in the description for this belt. But we've got to get this air intake over to the throttle body taken off. And then that's going to allow us to get down there to change the belt. So anyway, I'm ready to get going here. All right, fellas, first thing we got to do is get this cover on the upper intake pulled off. And it's just got 2 10mm bolts. So we'll get this out of the way. And man, we'll be hearing chainsaws for probably an hour or so, cutting some trees down on the neighbors. So if you hear that in the background, that's what's going on. So we got those 2 bolts out, and this just pops up. And there's basically this rubber grommets that holds this in place. It's kind of a pain. Come on now. There we go. Okay, now you're going to have to unplug the airflow sensor and then take some needle nose pliers. It's tabbed in here. So that gets that loose from the air cleaner. And then we'll have to pull this off of the throttle body. And then there's two 10mm bolts up here. So we'll get those. Come on now. There's also, before I loosen that, there's also a PVC hose here. Sound like some raindrops, doesn't it, Jeff? So yeah, we just got to pull this off. Good thing I'm under the carport. Okay, so that's pulled off. Get these bolts out. Come on now. I figured it was going to rain. Kind of looked that way. I don't think it's going to last long though. Kind of an isolated deal.
I gave him all that stuff yesterday, you know. And I shared a flywheel pin and that key, and I need a flywheel key up with them all.
Okay, let's get these loosened up, and this just takes an 8mm up on the throttle body, or you can use a Phillips, but we're just going to loosen these clamps up, and then that should pull right off of there. Alright, so now we just got to undo these clips. That'll loosen this up, and there's notches down on the back side. You got to pull it up out of those notches. Now this thing is completely loose. Then I've already got these loosened up, so it should just pull right off now. It's kind of hard to do one-handed, but come on now. There we go. So that'll get that out of the way. We'll just set it over here. All right, I've got the air intake out of the way. So there's what we're going to have to do. So here's the belt. Okay, you can see right here, this is the pulley. And right where my finger's pointing, you could put a 3/8 drive socket wrench in there, and you turn this counterclockwise, and then that'll loosen the belt, and you pull the belt off. So that's what we're going to attempt to do next. All right, here we go. It's a pretty tight spot with this fan right here, so you got to be careful. All right, so I got it in there. So now you just go counterclockwise. You'll see the belt loosen up. And then I got that much off. I'll have to get it off the harmonic balancer and all that. Messed around and hit the camera, didn't I? Anyway, there it is. We need to just let the tensioner go back to where it wants to be. All right, so we got the belt off. Let's take a look at her. All right, guys, the belt doesn't look bad at all. After 70,000 miles, it doesn't look bad. But I'll tell you one thing you can't really gauge is stretch. So you just don't know how much it's stretched. But I don't see any dry cracks or dry rotting going on or anything like that, any kind of tears. So that's good news. But I am going to keep this one. I'm going to leave it in the truck. That way if I'm ever out on the road and the new one breaks, I'll have a new one or an old one to throw on there. So we're going to get the new one put back in here, and shouldn't take but a minute. So let's get going on that. All right, guys and gals, I got the belt on there. The only thing I got to get it on is the alternator. So let's go ahead and get that part knocked out. Make sure it doesn't come off all the other ones. Boy, I think I'm going to have to put this in here way on this side of it. There we go. Now we should be cooking with gas. Come on now. Alright. There. Let's round that. It's up on there. Just make sure it's in the right slots. Right positions. All right, she's on. All right, look at there. We got the new belt installed. Everything went pretty smooth with it. Didn't have any issues. So, got that part of it done. I'm going to come over here and clean out this air cleaner. It's pretty filthy. And then there's the filter doesn't look the greatest either. Probably replace that when I do the oil change. So we're ready to button this thing back up and then start it up, and just to verify that everything's going good. So, but I'm glad to get that knocked out. Well, there you go. I got everything buttoned back up. Got the air cleaner put back on. So we're ready to start this thing up and make sure everything is good. All right, here, let's see here. All right. Yep, everything looks good, sounds good. You can see better over on this side. Let me get my flashlight. So yeah, it looks good. I don't know if you can see that or not, but so that's a success, guys. I got that done. That's something I've been wanting to do for a while. So looks like Lenny's tree service just got done over here at the neighbors. So that's good. I'll have to listen to Chainsaw. Coin it the Tennessee Chainsaw Massacre. Man, that thing was loud. But anyway, I got that done and the truck's running great. And the axle breather vent, I ordered that kit it'll be here Friday, so it's going to be a couple days before I get to that. So I guess we'll just go ahead and call it a day here, and I'll see you whenever I get that kit, and we'll get that axle breather vent installed. So we'll see you then. Well, it's a few days later, and we're out here. What is this? Scoreboard?
Yep, scoreboard.
Scoreboard, yeah.
Four Corners Marina.
Four Corners Marina, Percy Priest Lake, and man, it's pretty. Look behind us here. Looks awesome, doesn't it? I think it's supposed to be hot today, though. But we're gonna have a little lunch today. Jep's over here too. He had a rough night. But anyway, I guess we're gonna get our bellies full, and then I'll get started on this project.
Yeah.
This is JP, by the way.
You know? Hey y'all, how you doing?
All right, guys, gals. Well, I'm back at the house. Had a good lunch there at Four Corners Marina at Scorecard. Had a Philly cheesesteak on a hoagie with some broccoli. Anyway, we can get back on this project, and I got some good news. I've got the kit from Off-Road Gorilla, and this kit will allow me to modify the axle breather vent. And so you get the fitting that goes down into the axle, you get clamps, and then this is the air filter that you put on the opposite end of the hose, and then they also give you zip ties. So we've got all of that. We're ready to go on this, and I've been talking about this for a while, so I'm excited about getting going on this. And then also, before I get started on that though, I want to check, since I put a new belt on, I want to verify that my alternator's charging. Now, of course, I probably would throw an engine light, check engine light if the alternator was having issues, but I want to see the actual numbers on a multimeter so that I see how well it's charging. So let me get set up to do that, and then we'll do that first before we get started on the axle breather vent. All right, ladies and gents, I've got the multimeter hooked up to the battery, and right now we're reading 12.59 volts. Now when I start the engine, my voltage should increase, so keep the peepers on the multimeter. Let's see what happens. All right, here comes the thunder. So yes, with the engine running, we're now at 14.3 volts. So we're good to go. Awesome. Now, did you notice something there? When it idled down, now it's going down. That's interesting. So we're idled down now to 13.26 volts. So that makes sense. So the alternator is charging. Okay guys, I just wanted to show you that it's idled down to 700 RPMs, and we're now at 13.24 volts. So that's where she finally stabilized to. So everything looks good. All right, folks, I got the truck turned around. It's like 90 degrees out here today. It's really hot, so it's really nice being under this carport. But as I was getting ready to shoot this clip, I was just thinking about how I feel at the present moment. You know, I'm stuffed from that Philly cheesesteak, and I just don't really feel like doing nothing, you know. I'm thinking about a couch and air conditioning, you know, and how awesome it would be. But then I thought about it, and I was like, you know, I watch Puddin's Fab Shop there on YouTube all the time. And at the end of his videos, he always, and I'm just paraphrasing, but he always says, you can't get your projects done sitting on your hiney. So, now he didn't use the word hiney, but I used it because, you know, this is a family safe YouTube channel. So anyway, I'm gonna have to take that attitude because I really don't feel like doing this, but you know, you gotta change the thinker sometimes. So anyway, we're gonna get started, and hopefully this won't take too long. It shouldn't be too bad of a deal. Hopefully I didn't just jinx myself for saying that, but you know how that goes. But anyway, let's get going. All right, guys and gals, I pulled the spare tire out from underneath the bed here because it'll give me a lot more room. So let's check it out here. So you can see there's the chain which holds the spare tire. So this whole area is cleared up, and so now you can really get under here and work. So I just wanted to point that out, you know, make sure to do that because it'll make it a lot easier to do this job. And so we've got to work on this right here. This is the axle breather vent right here. So right now I'm going to pull this off, and you've already seen me do that before. Just takes a 14 millimeter wrench. We'll get it pulled out so we can get the new fitting put in. And so let me get going here and get this knocked out. All right, guys and gals. So we're ready to put this fitting in here. And I'm going to use some white thread sealant. And you don't have to use a whole lot. So you're just going to take a little bit of this white thread sealant. That's probably enough right there. You don't need much. And just make sure it's applied on the threads. And all this is going to do is just help seal it, keep water from going down the threads. So that's really all you're using it for. So we're going to thread that in here into the axle. Make sure it gets threaded right. Just, you know, take your time. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get that. Takes a smaller wrench, so let me go get a different wrench. Alright, so the right wrench is a 12 millimeter, so it's quite a bit smaller. So we'll get this thing put in here, and then we can move on to installing the hose and the air filter. Alright, guys and gals, I got the fitting put in the axle. So So now we're ready to install this hose. So in order to do that, we're gonna have to take this tail light off. And it's fastened by some Phillips bolts here. So that's gonna be the next step. We're gonna have to take these bolts out, pull the tail light out, and then that is where we're gonna insert the hose and mount the air filter. So that's the next step. All right, let's get this tail light off of here. Guess that'll be okay. Just leave it lay, I guess. Like that, I guess. I hate doing that. Here, I could do this. Yeah, that's what I'll do. Okay, guys, I got the light out, and you can see how dry this stays. So this is going to be the perfect compartment to put your air filter. So that's going to be the next deal here. Is I got to get the hose routed down to the fitting. So that's going to be the next step. Okay guys, this is a 5/16 inch hose. It says 290 psi. So anyway, we're going to get this routed. There's a real big area right here where you can route it. So we'll go ahead and route it in there and run it over to our fitting. Alright, so I routed the hose up over top of the frame. You can see it right there. And then we'll run it straight over to the fitting, which is over here. So let me show you a little bit straighter shot, different angle. So you can see up here, there's the hose, and it goes up over here. It comes up over the frame, and then it's just gonna go run straight to there. Now, make sure you leave enough slack so that when the suspension, you know, travels up and down, that it's not going to get bound in any way. But, you know, that's really all you got to do with that. So I've got a clamp that's going to go on the fitting. So we're going to get to that next. All right, I decided to do a little bit. I decided to go above this bar on the routing of the hose. Just thought that'd be a little bit better routing. And so what we're going to do now is I decided I'm going to put a little bit of gasket maker on that fitting, and that'll help this hose seal off because these clamps, you're going to put a clamp on the end of this hose to go on the fitting, right? So there's the clamp. So what I'm going to do is on the fitting, I'm just going to take some of this black gasket maker, and you don't need much, just enough to go around the bottom of the fitting. And that way, when I go to tighten this down, that'll eventually set up and help seal that off a little bit better, because it's really hard to get that hose snugged in one spot just with that clamp. So hopefully this will help. And I'm focusing on the lower part of the fitting so I don't get it up into the hose. So then you just put that hose on there, slide it on there. You'll see it kind of goos out at the bottom, but that's okay. And then you just tighten down your clamp, and eventually that's going to sit up and it won't turn, the hose won't turn on the fitting. So that's the key. You don't want this thing moving. You know, you want it to be able to seal onto the fitting, even though it's just an air vent. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. I still don't like that, but it's about the best you're going to get it. Hopefully that gasket maker will set up and then it'll stop moving. That's pretty snug. I think once it dries, we'll be good. Oh yeah. Yeah, once that dries, that ain't going to move around. So there we go. We got that end done. Alright guys and gals, now that the fitting and the hose and everything's done on the axle, I wanted to point out a few things. That is a stainless steel fitting, and the threads is the same threads as the OEM part. So you don't have to retap the axle. So that's a great thing. And so you're using stainless steel, which is better than brass, because brass, it could potentially break off in the axle, and you don't want that. And then they use stainless steel clamps too, so all of that inhibits rust. So that's why they chose that. Now we're getting ready to put the filter, the air filter in here, and it doesn't matter which side you use, you know, which side of the fittings here. But I'll mention that if you're expecting the debris or most of the stuff that is going to be bad, you want this filter, you want that air to hit the outside of the filter so that it'll be easier to clean the filter later. So anyway, I'll get that all figured out and get this up on the hose. And I'm going to have to cut the hose to length. And then we're going to zip tie this in. And so that's the next step. I just wanted to mention those things because it's pretty key, you know, with the positioning of the air filter and the fact that you're using stainless steel fitting on the axle and the stainless steel clamps. So that's the purpose behind all that. Okay guys and gals, I got the hose cut an approximate length of where I want. And so we're going to take the filter, and I decided that I want this side exposed because if dirt gets in here, it's going to get on the outside of the filter. This side's going to see the most dirt, in my opinion, because it's exposed. This side will be air coming from the axle, and it'll be pushing through the filter, so it should blow any of that debris off and keep it cleaned off better. So that's what I chose to do. So we're going to get that on the fitting and get that tightened down, and then I'm going to mount it up here like this with zip ties like that, and it'll set in there like that, and then I'll put the light in and cover it up. So that's the plan. I'm going right underneath this plate right here, this plate that's welded in right there. That way I don't conflict with anything on the light. So that's the plan. I'll come back at you whenever I get it mounted. I'll show it to you. Alright folks, here's what I had to end up doing. So, if you look down here, there was a little tab where this wiring harness clicks in, and that's what holds the wiring harness up in place. So what I did is I put that back in place, and then I tied with a zip tie, I tied the hose, and then about 3 or 4 inches up the hose I did another zip tie, and then I'm just going to let it run free like that. And you know, when I push the tail light back in, then it'll just shove it to the back and we'll be good to go. So let me do that and we'll have this all done. Alright, we're ready to put this tail light back in. I went ahead and added one more zip tie in the middle there, so there's 3 altogether. So the theory is that this should just get it'll automatically just push the filter to the back and then slip it right on there. There's plenty of room in the back side there, so it should just slip right on. And I need to get the screws. What did I do with them? Never ready. Come on, man. I'm like a never ready battery. Where in the world? Oh, that's right. They're over here. Duh. So anyway, we got this dude back on. Finally get this done. I've been talking about it for several videos now. Seems like. But that's all there is to it. Now the axle vent is able to vent, and now you've prevented water from getting in the axle down low. If you run through a big water puddle or creek or backing your boat in the lake and you get that axle below a water line, you're going to have water in your differential. So that's why I'm doing this. So there it is. I'll take you down underneath and I'll show how everything is routed. Alright, so here's the final routing. And everything worked out great. So it vents there and it runs up here. And I gave it enough slack and I put a zip tie right there. And another pointer on this project, guys, is just make sure your hose isn't rubbing up against any sharp edges, and you're good to go. So that's the routing. Alright guys, I kept the old vent breather in case I ever need it. There's nothing wrong with it. And they're not cheap. Well, they're pretty cheap. I mean, they're about 15 bucks a piece, but if it's still good, keep it. And I want to give a shout out to Off-Road Gorilla. I'll provide a link in the description for this kit. I'm not sponsored by them. I'm not getting paid by Off-Road Gorilla or anything. But I will say I like the kit. It seems to be a good deal. So anyway, check that out, and it'll help prevent your axle from getting all messed up, get all that water in your differential, and you're going to be in trouble. Alright guys and gals, well, I got the Serpentine belt installed. I tested the alternator, and now I got the axle vent breather done. So everything on the agenda was accomplished, and I'm happy about that. So I hope you enjoyed the content. Hope you enjoyed the video. Click like, subscribe to the channel. Doesn't cost you anything. It's free. And we'll see you on the next project. And like Puddin' says, a project doesn't get it done unless you get off your hiney. So get on that project and get it done. We'll see you next time.